this week we are going to be covering this dimensions design I did, which is being sold off to a band, which I can't exactly say yet, just because of the nature of the industry, but we're going to go over how I made the design because it's pretty detailed. There's a lot of little tricks in it. We'll talk about masking and stuff such as that. So let's just jump right into it. Along the way, if there's anything you're confused about, just stop me and we'll go back over it. So the first thing we're going to do is I want a sort of vortex thing. So I'm going to drag out the star tool and then I'm going to add more points to it. You know what, using the star tool again, I'm going to single click. I'm going to keep the points around 14, but I'm going to change the difference in the radiuses because that's going to give me, that'll change the difference between these 2 points. So check this out. If I go down to 100, but keep that the same, boom, it's more spiky. And I want the more spiky one, so we're going to go with this one. Let's change it to black. Okay, so this is kind of be the basis of our vortex. We're going to go and distort it a little bit with the twist, and this is going to help us get that vortex kind of look to it. So you can see it's kind of looking more and more like a cool vortex. And so right now it's a circle. I want it to be kind of a oval-like vortex, so I'm just going to expand this and then I'm going to bring this in. Alright, so now we've kind of got the basics of our vortex. And the main reason I want it to be an oval is just so it kind of fits the print area of the shirt. And as I'm looking at it too, these arms that are coming off it are pretty long, so I might do it again with one that's not quite as long. Closer to that. Let's try this one now. Boom. Okay, so there's the same thing, but slightly smaller arms. I'm going to like this look a little bit more. That's kind of closer to the vortex I was envisioning. So yeah, right away we're already kind of in good shape because we have a pretty solid looking vortex right here. So the second thing I want to do is I want some little things coming out of here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to offset path and we're gonna get this nice little offset, which I may have to change around a bit, but for right now let's try that. We're gonna make this white, and then I duplicate this, so now I have this path behind. I'll bring it to the front, and I'm gonna make it slightly bigger. Let's just center everything really quick. Okay, so now when I move this bigger path backward, that's not looking great. Let's make it slightly, the look we're going for is going to be closer to that. See, that's looking, right there, that's looking a lot better. We might even go slightly bigger, right around there, and now we're getting a pretty cool look to the vortex. You can kind of see that you get these weird little shapes in here because it's a rounded path, but those aren't going to be a huge deal because of the process that I'm going to do to get rid of them. So for right now, that should be pretty okay. Cool. So now I'm just going to duplicate this artboard over because I want to work specifically on what's inside of the vortex without these two background shapes. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste that back into this vortex. So we want a staircase that kind of rises up through the vortex. So that should be a really easy build, and we're actually going to build that outside of the vortex, and then we're going to use some masking to kind of drop it in. So the staircase is just going to be this nice and easy just duplicating and moving up type thing. Excuse me. And I'm just using Command D to duplicate up like that, which gives us that effect right there. Let's go make sure we have a white fill on this right now. Okay, so now we have kind of our little staircase, and if we were to drop it over this, you can kind of see where the staircase is going to end up. That looks about good to me. So I'm going to compound path this, give it that white fill. So now kind of here's the trick. I'm going to duplicate this vortex. I have two. Now I'm going to put this vortex kind of where I think the stairs should kind of lie. So let's just say right around, I think right around there-ish. Let's move it down a little bit. Okay, so like right around there is like a good place to have the stairs going up. And as I say that, I continue to play with it. Okay, let's go right around there. Let's just call that good for right now. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Object. I'm going to go to Mask, Clipping Mask, Make. And I had my shapes backwards. This needs to be on top. So now when I go to Object, Clipping Mask, Make, it should make a nice clipping mask of those stairs just like that, which is perfect, which is exactly what I want, because now if I drop that onto there, you know, you get the stairs going up. And we're going to kind of fix what's going on down in here, but the main thing being now the stairs are going up. So that's all going super well. Cool, so now we're going to go within our mask. Well, so I guess here's the first, for right now, let's bring these together. Okay, so now we're going to go in our mask, and the next thing is I'm going to start drawing some fire behind here. And the way I did it in the design was with the pen tool. If you're really good with the pen tool, you probably won't have trouble drawing fire. If you're not as good at the pen tool, this part might seem tricky, so we can go at it another way other than the pen tool. For those that don't love the way the pen tool works. But for my purposes, I'm going to do it with the pen tool and then show kind of from there what another way would be. And yeah, the pen tool's, you know, going to be something you kind of want to master if you're going to be in Illustrator a lot, because, you know, a lot of the stuff you do revolves around the pen tool. That's not a great looking flame. We're going to clean it up. Actually, we'll clean it up with the way I was going to show. So if we grab the paintbrush tool, I can go in, kind of draw a rough flame. Kind of roughly what I was envisioning. Okay, so now we're gonna join all these together. So we'll do it piece by piece. Join. They can't be joined because I realize I need to do it all in one. It's gonna look weird for a second. Okay, perfect. So let's make sure we bring that back to connect it. It's not gonna connect exactly. Okay. Now, let's bring that behind. It doesn't matter that it didn't connect exactly because it'll still fill in like that. So the cool thing now, that's if you don't want to use the pen tool, you can use the brush tool. So now these are all points I can play around with to kind of make this closer to what I want it to be, which is cool because it'll do just that. It'll play around and get this to be something closer to what I wanted. The other option is that you can go over here and you can grab this smooth tool, and you can kind of, if you click on this and then click on the smooth tool, you can kind of use the smooth tool to kind of reshape stuff to kind of, it's not going to, since this is such a smooth path to start with, it's not going to do a huge amount of reshaping, but you can kind of use that to do that. I'm just going to pull on these points until I get them where I want them, because for me that's the best workflow. And it's gonna look weird for a little bit until I kind of get this exactly where I want it. So bear with me on that. That's not bad. Let's see. Let's see if we can get a little bit more of a curve in here. Okay. So yeah, now we're getting a little bit closer to what I was envisioning. Still looks kind of goofy down there. And it doesn't have to be necessarily 100% perfect, but let's just say that's, yeah, that's, I want to say that's good, but maybe if we move. All right, that's good right there. Let's just move this up slightly, and that should be perfect. Okay, so cool. So now you have the flames. If we go back from the mask, you'll see that that's the flame currently, and it looks good. For our purposes, you know, we're slowly kind of building up to what we want. So next thing is I want some flames coming up in front of these stairs. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go back into the mask, back into the mask. So now we're in the mask, and I'm going to just bring these flames down, and I'm going to kind of offset them in front of the staircase. So that one's good, and maybe one like that. And now I don't want these directly repeating features being so prominent, so I'm going to pull on some more vector points again. And that way we can kind of, you know, differentiate them. Let's move this like that. Okay, this needs some serious cleaning up in here because on the up there I just kind of hit it behind the stairs. Cool. Let's pull on this one a tiny bit. Let's get it maybe coming out like that. And let's see here. Actually, what I may do, I may say, let's go in one deeper. So now we're looking just at the flame, and let's actually move all of these over like that. Then let's move this up, and let's move this kind of like that. Actually, let's just delete this entirely. Okay. So now when we drop back out, that's kind of what it looks like. I think the big issue is these two pieces right here, but kind of as we go forward, that'll be solved. So our next big thing is kind of doing the sky, which has the stars and the moon in it. So again, we'll go back into the mask. We're going to build the moon within the mask. It's going to be really simple. We're just going to build it with 2 circles, and we're going to use our Pathfinder tool, which we've talked about it in a bunch of other streams. And there we go, there's our moon right there. Boom. Let's fill that in with white. Yeah, so there we go. There's our moon. It looks good. It doesn't need the stroke outline on it. We're going to put it just kind of right up in the center, in the top right there. Next thing to do is stars. For stars, we can just use the star tool. And let's go like that. And that'll be a pretty good star. We really don't need to worry about changing it too much. So let's just drop a couple of those around. Let's do like, I don't know, like that. And let's make like a second tier that's slightly smaller. So now we've got, you know, maybe that whole thing going, and that looks good to me. We could even do 1 tier smaller, but then the next step in the process might make them kind of hard to see. So for right now, I think that looks good. Actually, maybe let's make one that's slightly bigger and move that around, but have very few of those. So here's our slightly bigger one. Okay, just kind of fleshing out the space, you know. Okay, so the next big thing is this looks kind of funky down here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this right here, duplicate it over, I'm going to lay it right on top, center all of that so it's layering right on top of each other. Cool, so now, sorry, it's not right on top. Now it should be right on top. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make it a stroke, right, like that. Stroke the inside, like that. No, sorry, excuse me. We're going to stroke the outside. We're going to round it. That. Cool. And now we're kind of getting that look that we had on our original final piece. Cool. So one of the big differences, I'm seeing something weird in there I want to go in and fix really quick. Let's see, if we move all of this, let's go in one deeper so we isolate the flame. Let's take this, just bump that over and down, and let's get some space in between these so that orange creeps up a lot more. There we go. Yeah, that's cool. That's pretty good looking. This flame is not showing. There we go. Okay. So it's looking pretty close to kind of where we had it before. The big difference is it ended up in black and white, which is a quick fix because we just go in here, change that to white, and then, you know, that's essentially where it was at before. The thing was I added some pretty cool texturing to kind of get it to where I wanted it, so that's the next big thing, is that we're gonna excuse me, we're gonna look at some texturing, and then that will kind of give the flames more depth even though they're white. So so here we go. Let's drop this into Photoshop and then we'll start working on the texturing for this. Actually, quickly, before we do that, this vortex thing needs to be taken care of. So I'm going to grab and delete the top, so we just have these two. We're going to use that Pathfinder again with just these, and we're going to delete out the top. So boom, now these points are just by themselves. And the thing is, I'm going to go into this smooth tool, which we've talked about before, and I'm just going to start dragging along these points. Let's try this again. Drag along these points. And now it's just going to kind of tweak this thing around, and it's going to make it look not as jaggedy as it does currently. And if it looks a little funky, that's kind of cool. That's kind of what I want, because this isn't, it's a, you know, it's a vortex. It's not supposed to be kind of made out of perfect clean cut shapes. It's kind of supposed to be a little all over the place. So this is gonna, you know, it'll look nice if these shapes aren't all perfect. So we're just gonna continue this process through every shape. And I'm just kind of lightly pulling on points like that to just kind of, and what this tool does is basically, if I draw like that, it'll kind of pull the points lightly towards the shape I'm drawing. So this one down here has some jagged points. So it's going to be a good example of when I do that, it kind of smooths those points out based on my path I'm drawing. And I think this is back to the first one right here. So, right there, okay, cool. So we shaped this up. It's looking pretty cool. If we were to take this and drop it in, it would look something like that. Let's actually move this out slightly. Yeah, so, sorry, we need to actually go in on this stroke, which I said didn't need to be centered, and actually we do need to center that. Or just put the stroke on the inside. Okay. Cool. So now, that's looking pretty nice right there. We're getting somewhat close to having kind of a finalized design. Let's just center all that for good measure. So yeah, we're getting pretty close to kind of getting out of the final design. The next thing we're going to do is I'm just going to drop this into Photoshop. Okay. So I'm going to be working an 11 by 17. That's kind of poster sized, or if it is t-shirt size, I might do it a little bit different. Okay, so we're just going to paste this in. And let's just get that nice and in the center like that. Okay, so let's really quickly just get this on a white background. That'll make this easier. Okay, so the first big thing is this is basically a two-color print right now. It's black and orange. Those are my two colors that are going to print because white doesn't need to print. So I'm going to separate out the orange really quick. Okay, so now my orange is a separate layer, which is cool. And in my final print, I didn't include the orange because I didn't like it, but I like having it there as an option in case in the end, the client wants to go back or something and do orange. So now we're just going to kind of actually undo what I just did with the white background. We're going to make it completely black, and then with this right here, now I can see I need to take out the color white as well because again, white's not going to be printed. So I'm just going to take white out, and then I'm going to make the entire thing white for this next step of the process. So from here I'm going to go in and I'm going to blur it, and it's kind of a heavy blur, but I think the heavier the better kind of for this one. So now we're going to go in and we're going to brush a little bit of a texture onto it using a texture brush I have. Okay, so let's just put this light texture over it. We're going to bring some of it back in with a layer mask. Okay, now we're going to go and we're going to blur this as well. Again, give it a pretty heavy blur because kind of the heavier the blur, the smoother the texture will be. And then we're just going to merge all of that, which is very destructive editing, but it's going to give us a cool result. So boom, now as I go back in, you can see gave some kind of real cool natural distress in on this vortex we're working on. The thing I like specifically is you get these nice kind of rounds between where things meet. It's not so sharp, and that's why I kind of wasn't worried about the two flames meeting right here earlier. So from here, the next thing I did was I added some pretty heavy texturing with halftones, and I actually, now that I look at it, I used some pretty nice like triangle texturing in here, so we could actually quickly go back into this and add that triangle texturing by just making a triangle. And then we're just going to duplicate it across as the texture. And then when we go back and do that same process that I just showed in Photoshop, it'll actually make these triangles look like a nice little shading on the stairs. So let's continue. Okay. So I can delete some of these that I don't need because they're not going to the edge of the stairs. And I actually want these, again, I want to make sure these don't go over the flame. So I'm going to make sure that when I go back, I make sure that the flame's on top of everything again. Yeah, since, I mean, it'll be quick and easy to make the flame go back over everything, but And then, alright, look at that. So now we got that nice shading on the stairs, which is pretty cool. So let's go back into Photoshop. Let's repeat that same process that we did to get this nice little thing, but this time let's do it with the nice looking shading on the stairs. So as you can see, it's kind of quite the process to build this up start to finish. You know, it doesn't happen just like that. There's a lot of layers going on, lots of going back and tweaking stuff, because you know you're not going to get it right the first time just right off the bat. It's going to take some playing around with to get everything to be exactly where you want it. Okay, cool. Now we're going to go in again. We're going to blur that. We're going to add our texturing over it. We're going to bring the texturing back in with a mask. Which we're going to blur. We're going to merge visible, which is destructive designing, but it's just part of my process. And then we're going to use legacy mode, brightness, and contrast to pull some stuff back in. So cool, look at that. That's looking pretty good right now. If I select the white, make sure I have all of it selected, and I go up, hit Command Delete, I'm now going to have this layer right here that's just my white. So that way it's now its own separate thing like that, so I don't have to worry about it being merged together. So we've talked about halftones before, halftone texturing in a different live stream, and halftone texturing is how I gave this a lot of its kind of shading feel. I have some pre-made halftones that I'm going to use just because I don't want to go through the process of making one entirely when I have ones that I've already made that I can just drag and drop in. So right now I'm just going to go look through that. Actually, I think if I go halftone, I can look through the ones I wanted, and I believe it was halftone 2 that I like. Let's see, yeah. So this is a pre-made halftone. I'm just going to copy it, bring it over, and I'm going to paste it in. Cool. Doesn't look very good right there. We're going to blow it up so you can really see those dots right about there. Really want to be able to see that nice pattern in there. So I'm really just looking in the stairs and flames, because that's what this is going to affect, is just the stairs and flames. And ideally I kind of want the halftone to be lighter towards the top of these flames and heavier towards the bottom. It'll give it a nice shading versus being lighter at the bottom and heavier at the top. And I don't have to get that close. Something like that will look pretty nice. And then I'm going to do a different halftone on the stairs to make them slightly darker, and it'll give a nice contrast. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to select the outside, so I can go up to this halftone, I can hide the selection, and then it constrains the halftone to just what's inside of there. So for this one, now if I move it, let's get some kind of heavy texturing on the stairs, like heavy but interesting, not just straight, you know, halftone, but get a little bit of contrast going in there. Maybe something like, that's pretty cool right there, I think. So again, for this one, I'm going to select the outside. Whoops. I'm going to select the outside of the design. I'm also going to go in and select the flames, because we don't want them to get a kind of double up on the halftone, and we're just going to go layer, hide selection. Boom. So now we've got a little bit heavier on the stairs, and it also went heavier on the moon and stars, so I'm just going to come in with my brush, and I'm going to brush those out really quickly. Because they don't need that heavy of a texture. Okay. Might have missed right in there. Yeah, I did. Missed down along in there. And that's the cool thing about a layer mask, is I can go and brush all this back in. I want to make sure these are perfectly black. That way they will fit in with the design. Okay, cool. So now we've got that halftone in there. It's possibly a tad bit heavy on the stairs. We can move around some if we need to. You know, we could bring some back in if we needed to. It doesn't look bad being that heavy on the stairs though. Because, you know, it just adds a little bit of dimension, especially if you kind of look, you know, stand back from the screen. It'll give it some nice dimension. So the final thing I actually want to do is I'm going to once more duplicate this halftone, and then I'm just gonna flip it around, 180 it, like that. Whoops, like that, and then bring it back over here and kind of very loosely line it up. And then the cool thing with that, actually, let's take this away really quick. The cool thing that did is now, if I go in with this, get that out of there, and now let's go in and get this out of the flames as well. Just brushing this duplicated halftone out will actually give us the stair effect I was originally looking for. Let's go nice and small, get that out. Okay, so that actually gives us that same halftone effect I was looking for originally, which is awesome. Cool. So check that out. So now we're getting pretty close to basically being done with it, which is cool. This is looking real nice right here. So obviously need to clean that halftone up a little bit. Let's just go in. Let's just get that out. Okay. So now if you look at everything, it's looking pretty good. You know, we've got a pretty nice looking design right here. It's essentially the way it's set up. It's print ready. So the big thing is I would drop a name somewhere in here, probably over the top, which is going to take, you know, I'm not just going to drop a lettering over the top, although I could. I'm probably going to go in and tweak the lettering around, make it fit this design really nice. But the cool thing is, you know, this halftone is going to be pretty print friendly, but at the same time, you know, if you kind of step back from it, you don't see the halftone, which is nice, which is kind of what I like. So, you know, overall, gives you this pretty cool look. Very good for band merch type of look. So, yeah, this is pretty much our finalized design right here. And I think I forgot to touch on it, but when I 180 that one halftone, it was to kind of get halftone flecks of vortex flying off, just to make the vortex look that much crazier and chaotic and whatnot. So yeah, again, just kind of reiterating what we did. We built the vortex in Illustrator because Illustrator is going to be great for building. So we built, that initial vortex shape with a star that we twirled. Then we built the stairs. We built the flames with the brush tool. We duplicated them down in front. We built all the stars and the moon in here. We did the little triangles in front of the stairs. We kind of did the crazy outside of the vortex by expanding out the original vortex and then cutting that out of an even bigger version of the vortex. We went back into Photoshop, which let me pull up Photoshop. We went back into Photoshop. In Photoshop, we did kind of a cool process for texturing. Gave us, some cool rounded edges in here. Made the triangles look nicer. Made the flames look pretty nice. We went and used some halftone texturing, which gave it a nice grungy feel. And, here's our final design. The last thing I guess I'll touch on really quick is if I wanted to add orange back into it, because for whatever reason the client liked orange more, we could do something like that, which gives the orange almost like a misprint look to it. The other thing we could do is let's just go in and make sure we select these flame areas really quick. And this is just going to be a quick way to show you how to make it a 2-color print if that's what they wanted. I'm just going to paint this in really quick, and then we're just going to change it to orange. So paint the flames in, and then I'm just going to change it to the color orange. Alright, so now we have that color orange. Move these flames down. Boom. There's the design with the orange in. Some people might like it. I personally thought the white was a little bit cooler, which is why I went with it. But yeah, so there's our final design. So cool. There don't seem to be any questions about it or anything, so I'm going to go ahead and say thank you guys all for tuning in, and we'll do